This is a video about a terrible detour around a worksite on the Cooks River, brought to you by Energy Australia and their subcontractor. Detours and diversions at worksites are something we all come across all the time, and you don't really worry about them if they are done properly. Sure, it can be a little bit frustrating to be held up for a minute or two, or to have to lengthen your journey by a small amount. But maintenance and construction is a fact of life that you just have to put up with. It's either that, or live with potholes, blocked drainage systems, collapsing bridges, power outages and leaking pipes. Whilst a great deal of thought and effort often goes into creating a painless and safe detour for drivers, the same isn't always true for pedestrians and cyclists. A she'll-be-right approach to safety is all too common when cars aren't being diverted, or should I say, drivers aren't being diverted, because cars aren't self-driving, are they? What you've been looking at so far are well-organised diversions around work sites. These are well-planned, well-executed, safe and easy to understand and follow. This is how things should be. Signage to provide advanced warning, variable message signs if required, clear detour signage all the way around the worksite, safety barriers where necessary, traffic controllers at both ends, and a clear, safe and unobstructed path from one end of the worksite to the other. If you stop and look closely, you'll often also find maps and other detailed signage spelling out exactly what work is being undertaken, how long it will last, why it is being done, who is carrying it out, and how long the job will last. And what did I find on the Cooks River on Wednesday near the Chain of Ponds Reserve? An Energy Australia worksite that had almost none of the above. I rode around a bend and there in front of me was a fence across the path and a detour sign, with the detour sign pointing into the trees beside the path. I backed up a bit and found two A4 sheets cabled tied to the fence in a pretty non-obvious location spelling out what was going on and how to detour around the site. It's not a terribly difficult detour, but these sorts of things are normally printed on 900 by 600 core flutes and stuck up where it's really easy to see them. I did a U-turn and went back the way I came to see if I'd missed some warning signage. I bumped into this bloke who said he was confused by it. I then bumped into another bloke who said he'd been surprised and confused by the fence. It was at this point I noticed the closed sign on a pole, the only bit of warning signage, and it was installed well after the point where you're supposed to detour off to the right. Let's approach the detour again. You can't even see this closed sign from the point where you need to turn onto the road. Furthermore, there's no detour sign at the spot where you're supposed to detour, or if it is there, I've completely missed it. The placement of the signage is abysmal and clearly hasn't been tested with a ride-through. The detour itself is quite straightforward, but when I got to the other end I thought, I'm going to check that as well. So I wanted to see how the signage looked when approaching from the other direction, and it was even worse. I rode about 100 metres north further from the site and then turned back and didn't see a single advanced warning sign. At the site itself, there are no detour signs telling you to head left, or any maps or explanatory documentation like there is at the other end. All I could find was this standard worksite sign with the site contact details on it. I've got to say, this is very unusual for work sites on the Cooks River. There's been a lot of work done on, for instance, the high tension power lines not far from here, and that site has been very well managed with lots of signage and traffic controllers and so on. The contrast with this site is quite stark. The difference, I guess, between professionals and amateurs. Energy Australia are responsible for this work. They really need to get down here and straighten it out and ensure it meets their normally high standards of worksite safety. I'm also wondering if this closure had to be approved by Strathfield Council and if they required a traffic management plan before approving it. Road closures always require a traffic management plan, or TMP, like this one, which I've lifted from the Strathfield Council minutes, setting out where signage will be installed, but I couldn't find anything in the minutes of the recent council meetings with anything like this. If council did approve the closure and a traffic management plan was submitted, is the plan actually being followed? The Cooks River Path is a fantastic facility for families who want to go for a safe ride with the kids. What are the consequences of suddenly dumping young kids onto the road without proper signage for cyclists, or warning signage for drivers to let them know there might be cyclists on the road where normally they wouldn't see them? What are the consequences of someone crashing into this fence after dark? Because the lighting along here is very poor and there seems to be no provision made for warning people commuting home at say 9 p.m. It really wouldn't take much to fix this. Apart from engaging a qualified traffic planner to write a proper traffic management plan, I'd print out the detour maps on a couple of 600 by 900 core flutes and attach them to star pickets at either end of the worksite. And I'd make sure the signs are facing people coming down the path rather than being parallel to the path. Side benefit of core flutes is that they don't get soggy if it rains. I'd also put in some warning signage, say 100 metres down the path in each direction, letting people know there is a worksite and a detour up ahead. Now, the ideal distance for that would be found in the Austroads Guide to Temporary Traffic Management, which has templates for this sort of thing. The RMS website also has a searchable catalogue of traffic signs, but a qualified traffic planner would know all about that. And of course, I would also make sure there are large yellow signs at every point where you need to change direction. Not many would be required on a simple detour like this, but they need to be put up where they can be seen from a reasonable distance. So come on, Energy Australia, get your act together.